Hey, hold on. Dr. Jenny probably smiling right now. Hey, Dr. Jenny probably smiling. Hey, she already know I'm gonna be wilding for a little while when I start this introduction of huh? Guess what we got? Huh? Cosmic Mind. Say it with me. Say it with me. Cosmic Mind UV. Ain't it? Is everywhere you need to be. I've been telling you that for how long? I've been telling y'all that. And guess what we got? Cosmic always talking us to death. Guess what we got? Excellent special, huh? Interview, huh? With none other than Dr. Jenny Reed, huh? Oh, you're not familiar with that name, huh? You're not familiar with it? You're gonna be familiar with it today, ain't you, man? Huh? The child welfare system, modern reflection of slavery, alright? Let me turn this down, huh? So we can go and get to it. Dr. Jenny, please introduce yourself. What you got?
Well, thank you for having me, Cos. I am Dr. Jenny Reed, and I am definitely someone very familiar with the child welfare system. I have worked in the child welfare system for almost 20 years. The state shall go unnamed, but I've had the opportunity to intersect with a lot of families during that time in those 20 years in different levels, court systems, law enforcement, just you name it. I'm a social worker by profession. I actually hold 3 degrees in social work, a bachelor's, a master's, and a doctorate in social work. I fondly refer to myself as the triple threat because of that. It's just a field that I love, and it has definitely has its problems as a profession, but one I think that if you come into it, you can find your place in how to make the lives of people better, and that's what I sought to do and still seek to do. Currently, I am a professor at a university in the state in which I live, and I get to the honor of teaching up and coming social workers. Um, that's about it for me. So, what do you want me to talk about now, Cause I can continue on. Okay. So today I'm here and I want to talk about some things about the child welfare system in general. Um, so one of the things that I'd like to talk about is the child welfare system and how it has
Hey,
a
well, okay. Yeah, keep going. My apologies, because my phone is bananas over here. You wouldn't overstand over here to keep this show going. If you hear pause for me, just keep going. Just keep rocking out. This is your space. Rock out. Let it pour out. And introduce your guests as well whenever you get that moment.
Okay. Actually, I did not know my guests were going to be joining here. I just had a little confusion there. So they'll just be in the background supporting. Okay. All right, so I want to talk about a little bit about the child welfare system. And like I said, I've had 20 plus years in the child welfare system, 30 years as a social worker. And the child welfare system is a very unique system in that it uses mostly social workers to run that system. Okay. So most of the time when people hear welfare, they don't necessarily hear the child part of it. But child welfare is the portion of usually legislated laws within states that covers abuse and neglect of children and mitigates abuse and neglect within a system separate from and co-equal to law enforcement. So those things at some point come together. And they cover a lot of different areas. They cover sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, educational abuse. It covers all of those things in under the neglect, physical neglect, medical neglect, educational neglect. So that system carries a lot of I just it carries a lot of different power structures throughout it, and the way that system carries out the its role or its mission is basically through the court systems. Okay, so those court system those court systems can also involve criminal court and family court. Sometimes it can be only family court, but it's never um, criminal court without family court. Okay, so there may be felony charges that come out of things. So I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like. So just kind of getting back to uh, the topic of today, I wanted you to understand a little bit about the child welfare system. In most states and the territories in the US, you're going to find in each county of your state, each county, no matter how close those counties align, each county will have its own child welfare system. Okay. These are laws that are legislated from your state legislators. Okay. And it is enforced through the criminal justice system, again, as well as the family court system. Okay. So there's a lot of systems involved. So that's going to involve police. Okay. When you think about it, I mentioned education. That's going to involve schools. Okay. I mentioned medical neglect or abuse. That's going to involve your health system. So you can see just child welfare in and of itself is not just this isolated entity. It is huge and it involves multiple systems at multiple levels. So today's topic then would be very disturbing for most. If you talk about child welfare, looking at the modern reflection of slavery, what does that look like? Let me clarify something before I get into that. Child welfare is not slavery. Okay, I want to be very clear that I am not saying that. But it is a modern reflection of slavery. And I'm going to talk about what that looks like in a minute. The child welfare system is not slavery. But I want when we begin to break that down, you'll begin to understand that there are structurally there's some similarities. Now, I was what you would refer to as a frontline worker. In other words, I was that person that knocked at the door, that went in, that talked to families about reports that were made in regards to their families. Okay. And I did that for 8 straight years. That is really unheard of in child welfare, to be an investigator of child abuse and neglect for 8 straight years. The burnout in that area alone is massive. Most of the time, we can't keep social workers in that area more than 2 years at a time because the burnout rate is so high. It's very dangerous. What I found is that I figured out that if I could get through the door, there might be a way I could help this family turn itself around, right? Without having to completely face all of the negative things that you could face if you go in front of a judge. Very few times you're not going to be in front of a judge, okay? But what can we do to mitigate some of that pain that those families are going to talk about, okay? Are going to face in front of that judge when that judge is talking to them about what has happened in their family. Okay. So I stayed with it and I stayed with it a long time for my own reasons. During that time, I began to see similarities of what the history of slavery in this country looked like. But it wasn't just me. There's scholars also saw this. Okay, families will tell you this feels like slavery. Okay, This feels wrong. This is very intrusive. Okay. So it wasn't just me as a frontline worker that began to see those similarities. Okay. So again, while child welfare has no intent to be slavery, it does bear some haunting similarities. The one that you would be most familiar with would be forced removal of children. Okay. And that's mostly what you hear when you hear social worker. That's mostly what you hear. That's mostly what you think about. Okay. Is that person that takes away children from families. Okay. What did we have in slavery? It was the forced removal of an entire people from a distant land, people that looked like me. So you can't imagine as I began to realize the similarities and I began to see that this is following the same structure of slave trade. Okay. And that may be overthinking it a little bit, but yes. Have I ever had to remove children from their homes? I removed multiple children from their parents. Okay. And of course, some of those children went back home, but many of those children did not. And I'll talk about a little bit more of what that looks. So the first similarity that you see is that forced removal. Now, of course, we had a huge, long protocol of when and why a child would be removed. I'm not going to go through that because some of the things that I might say could trigger some of your guests or your listeners, cause, and I don't want to do that. But there are some horrific reasons why children may have to be removed from their homes, or those decisions might be made. Those decisions were not made in a vacuum. Those decisions were not made for profit. Although states are paid when children are removed from their homes because those children have to be cared for. So the system has to provide monies for those children to be cared for while they're outside of their homes. Okay. Unlike slavery, it's not for profit and no one's should be lining their pockets. And this should not be a thing that you do haphazardly. There should be thought that goes into that because it is very traumatic, not only for the family, but for those children. Can you imagine being um, a person that was brought here from across transatlantic slave trade, and then you were put on a plantation, and to make it worse, someone came and then took your children away, and you never saw those children again? That has often happened in child welfare, where parents won't get to see their children again. Maybe when those children get older and have no longer are minors, but those structural similarities exist.
Dr.
Another,
Jen,
yes,
real quick, my apologies, pardon self. So, okay, being that you're on the economic piece, well, you touched on a variety of pieces, but the economic piece. So, who would you say benefits the most from the child removal? Does the agencies benefit, or foster, or the private providers? Like, who benefits the most financially? You think?
okay, so I'll try to break that down for you. Okay, when a child is removed from a home, that child's name and all of the identifying demographics of that child goes into a system. That system is immediate. Okay, that child, it triggers Medicaid for that child. It immediately triggers medical care for that child. That child doesn't have to fill out an application. No one does. They are immediately covered medically. Okay. So then what happens is that It also triggers a money flow. There's an anticipation of how long children should remain in custody or will remain in custody. So, depending on states and their budgets and all of those things, that money is literally queued up. Okay. Every dollar that comes in behind that child serves a lot of purposes. It pays the social workers in the state. It's not all used for child welfare. Okay. It can be used as state office. It can be used for the justice system, the family court that covers that child and the cases. So money goes there as well. There's salaries that are going to get paid based on that money. Okay. I can tell you this, when a child leaves the child welfare system, no money, the money stops. Okay. So there's no money for the child leaving. There's only money when the child comes in. And so every system within the child welfare system, for instance, like I said, the social workers, the court systems that the children are filtered through, the foster homes that the children may end up going into. Currently, many states now have what's called relative placement. That is not extremely new, but within the last, I want to say, 15 years, that has become um, a measure that has been used where actually children are placed more so. The goal is to get them placed with a family member, and those family members are now given economic support for those children while they're in their homes. So if you think about all of those elements that money funnels through from that child, just from that child entering the system. Cause I can tell you this, who doesn't get any money from that child going into the system is the family from which they were removed. Okay. That support is not there for them. Okay. And they're going to lose a few things. And I believe that we'll talk about that in maybe in another episode. But does that answer for you? And please stop me
Yes.
because I'm just going on.
No doubt. I just had a couple of questions, a few more questions, and I'm gonna segue to EmpressStar, because we got to get the feminine energy vibing out on this as well, because she has a personal experiences as well. So when people hear "quote unquote" child welfare system, they think protection. From your perspective, how does it actually function in marginalized communities? And I think you covered that as well. Did you want to go into any more of that? Maybe some inner workings that people maybe not see. And I wanted to get into, how is it an economic leakage too? Is that an economic leakage problem as well eventually?
Eventually, yes, it can be. Okay. So, two things you asked. I'm going to start with your last when you talk about economic leakage. Okay. Many times, when most times, I'm going to say most times, when children are removed from a home, what it can trigger for that family is if that family is receiving um, financial support from the state, whether it's in the form of what we used to call EBT, food stamps, we now call electronic benefit transfer or EBT. Um, those are going to be impacted. They can no longer receive that. So that cuts benefits to that home because that child is no longer in that home. Okay. It's also going to cut any TANF benefits. Most of the persons, and that goes into another one of my areas, most of the persons are single moms. So their TANF is going to be cut. TANF is an acronym, TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. Okay, so it's going to cut that off. Okay. That family has about 30 days before they feel that impact. If that mother or that father is receiving, or that grandmother, okay, it doesn't have to be a parent, whoever has custody of those children, if they are receiving child support payments, those child support payments are redirected to the state. Okay, they are redirected until that child returns. Those payments are then used within the system to provide funding for and or to whomever, whether it's it goes collectively. It doesn't go directly to the child. It goes into the system. Okay. Depending on how old that child is, that child may actually, and depending on the state and their statutes, that child may in fact receive direct child support payments. But that's usually very rare. And that's usually something that's going to happen under certain circumstances, really nuanced situations. Okay. Where a child is much older for some reason and may be getting those payments. But that's very rare, very rare. So the economic bleed is going to be to the family from which that child was removed. Okay. Um, I'm drawing a little blank on your initial question that you asked me. Can you ask me that initially again?
No, I was just saying how much of a financial leakage it was
Okay.
overall for the melanin black community overall when we get to talking about group economics and the different things
Okay.
of that nature.
I will definitely touch upon that. Yeah, I'll definitely touch upon that in another um, in my next similarity, because one of the second similarity that you'll see between the child welfare system in slavery is the state ownership of the child. Okay, so ownership, the child or the children are now what we refer to as wards of the state. With the stroke of a pen, that child now belongs to the state, whatever state that is. Okay? Very similar to the stroke of the pen in slavery, where property was exchanged. Okay? And I always try to buffer a little bit, but the similarities are so haunting at times. So they become owned by the state, and they, until the court order is reversed, they remain in state ownership or state custody. That means that the parent no longer has custody of a child that they've given birth to. Okay? They no longer hold um, ownership of their own child. There are other people, such as myself, that would have to make every decision for those children as though they were my child, but not based on necessarily the love of a mother or love of a parent, even though you better believe in every situation where I had the horrible responsibility of removing a child from its parents, that I cared for those children. Okay. Of course, they didn't come home and live with me. That couldn't happen. But I had to place them somewhere with strangers. So these children were going mostly with strangers. That's why one of the things that I do like that has transpired over the last few years is that relative placement has become a major push, because higher echelons of people begin to understand that no matter what happens within a family, family is family, and you need to try to keep connections with these children to their families. It's not going to erase what has been done or caused to cause them to be removed, but it will lessen some of the pain for not only the children, but from the parents from whom they were removed. And I just thought about your other
Mm.
half of that. Go ahead, Cos.
Oh no, no, no worries, no worries. I got a couple of questions for you with the crowd. We
Okay.
got a great audience. Salute to Hirsch Dirt. That's my brother. If you need your tax services done, Hirsch Dirk on Facebook, y'all. All the accounting services. If you need an accountant for your business, get you situated. He'll run them numbers and get you right. He says, was there any similarities to the homes you visited? And I guess what was the glaring similarities?
I am I'm not 100% clear in regards to what he's asking, but I have an idea that I'm thinking he's probably asking, did I see any similarities to slavery in those homes? That might be what he's asking. Okay. So I'm gonna ask, do you think that's what he was asking?
Possibly a Hirsch. If you're still there, G, just be more specific. Are you mean similarities as far as the breakups or the marriages or just the relationship styles, or if it was single women, because maybe Dr. Jenny can maybe cover a little bit of all of that. And then real quick, he said the biggest difference between the two is child welfare. Child welfare is self inflicted, while slavery was outside of one's control. What are your thoughts? And then I'm gonna segue to Empress Star. The next voice y'all will hear is Empress Star once Dr. Jenny gives her take on what just came in as questions. Gratitude for the participation, y'all.
Okay, so my thoughts on whether or not that slavery was out of their control. You're absolutely right. They had no control over that, and that child welfare is self inflicted. It is definitely um, structured through law. Okay, so it is definitely unnecessary to say self inflicted, but it is definitely regulated. Okay. So, what you also have to remember, however, is that slavery was also regulated. It was also written into law. That was law. Okay. And child welfare is a set of laws. And you can go on any state legislative, you just Google child welfare laws, whatever state you're in, and you're going to see those statutes. Okay. So they were really the same. Okay. They were both regulated. Okay. Absolutely regulated. Definitely has laws in place of what happens when, how, and that sort of thing. Okay. So great question. Great question.
All right, all right. Hey, hey, how you doing, Dr.
Hi,
Jenny?
Empress.
Dr. Jenny?
How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. To everybody, I'm Empress Star here to take you far. I'm gonna finish the rest of the interview.
Hold on, she being modest. She gonna take you far no matter where you are.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Um, so far it's been a very, very great interview. Um, Now I want to talk about the structural design and the incentives. How does the current federal and state funding structure incentivize removal over prevention?
Ooh, that's a huge question. So incentivize, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you remember earlier, and I don't have numbers to give you, I'm not a great numbers person, but the listeners can definitely delve into it and they can find this information. I like people to do some of their own search and research, right? So, again, as I stated earlier, when a child is removed, money floods for that child into the state. It comes from the federal government to the state, okay? And then that money goes out into many, many streams. Okay. It doesn't all come into the child welfare system. And we will never know how much of that money goes in different areas. I simply can tell you of some of the known areas that it's going to feed that are tied directly into child welfare. Okay. So, what we would have to know is that the two major areas where it's going to feed is going to be the juvenile court system or the family court system. The family court system is responsible for the legal oversight of the child welfare system. So, the child welfare system, in and of itself, does not serve full oversight. These are people that would resemble, I don't even want to say it, but maybe the slave owner, the plantation owner, whatever. That's really harsh, but that's what it feels like and looks like at times. Okay,
Absolutely.
because you basically you have to move the children from place to place at times depending on what's going on with that child. And again, that second structural piece that I talked about was was the oversight from the courts. So the child wealth the criminal justice system gets money from this influx of children. Okay, I can tell you that there was a time when there was some pushback when we went the particular place where I worked, and I'm very careful not to say the state where I was, um, I wanted to go more into a preventive type of framework. That's how I wanted to maneuver my unit. I was a supervisor for a unit. I had about 6 social workers under me. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to look more preventatively. We would get the reports. Okay, what can we do to prevent this family from coming before these judges? Because you have to remember these are moms who are probably on SNAP, probably maybe some child support, maybe EBT. They don't have money, they don't have attorney money. And so
Right.
they would come into court without attorneys. Okay. You don't in a criminal situation where you are charged um with a crime, you are minimally given opportunity to have a court appoint you an attorney. That is not the case in the child welfare system. In the child welfare system, most of the parents come in without attorneys. They are
Right.
facing judges, they are facing attorneys, they are facing skilled social workers, and they're in that courtroom without an attorney. The
Okay.
children are assigned an attorney. Okay.
Okay.
All of this filters, Empress, into all of the monies coming down. Okay. So
Yes.
honestly, Empress, there was a prevention program that was federally pushed forward many years ago um, by the federal government. And I can tell you within 5 years, that program was pulled. And I will say that while we were not given, and this is not just in my state, this was the federal program, the prevention program was pulled.
Okay. Wow.
And
So,
and we assume that we know why it was pulled because there is no money given to a family, or there's no money funneled to the state in a prevention case. You can open one, but you get no money to support that case. And so therefore, there's a financial uh, uh, drain right there on the state when no money is coming in. So prevention
okay.
programs do not bring in money.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So,
Okay.
what measurable outcomes actually define child safety, and who decides that?
Okay, great question. I'm going to try to narrow it because the scope can be really wide and sometimes very broad, right? So there are what we call imminent danger, okay? Imminent danger is going to be anything that could be life threatening that is observed. Okay. And so that's the highest height is imminent danger. All right. I'll double back to that. So that would be abuse. Okay, so removal is going to come at anything that's imminent danger. So let's say if you got a report in which there's sexual abuse being reported, and the named perpetrator is in the home. Okay, if that named perpetrator is in that home, it's considered as imminent danger, and that child is going to be removed. The decision comes twofold. The decision is going to come from a consultation between that worker that is entering that home and that supervisor. Okay. In some states, it's the worker that's in the home and the judge. In most states, it's going to involve the three: the supervisor, the worker that's in the home, and the judge. In the state where I worked, the supervisor made the initial call. Within 24 hours, you were in front of a judge, including that parent. You had 24 hours to report to court. 24, not 48. You had 24. If there was a weekend, we understand, but you had 24 hours to get approval from that judge. Okay. So there's imminent danger. Okay. Then you can go to what we did, what we would use as preventative measures. We would try and reconcile certain situations with the family after a time, and you can there's a number of criteria that can be used, all coming down to danger of the child. If those things could not be resolved with the child in the home, with an attempt if possible, then the child would be removed. Again, that supervision of the worker that's observing, and the report to the judge. Those things make the decision. Okay. So it has to be a number of things. In regards to physical abuse, it can definitely be, if law enforcement is involved, is there bruising to the point, or is there um, damage to the child to where that child had to be hospitalized? Okay. And I don't want to get into a lot, like I said earlier, because I don't want to trigger some of your guests. Okay. Because you can see some horrific things, and horrific things do happen to children. Okay. So again, imminent danger, just remember
Absolutely.
that part. And then and then some and then some intervention, possibly, to and then failure to rectify dangerous situations for the child. Some situations could be, the mom just needs to get some power back on to keep from using candles in the home. There can be some help for that. Okay. There could be some over discipline going on in the home. Okay. And that is subjective. That's a cultural issue that the courts cannot often mitigate. Okay. So that becomes another form of similarities. What is over punishment? Do you remember when you used to punish and beat people and stripes on their backs and do all sorts of horrendous things? And then we say you cannot spank your child. Okay, we don't say you can't spank, cannot harm your child where they're having to go to the hospital. I've seen some horrific things, but the
Right.
point being is that you try to resolve, right? You try to keep that family together. That's actually the charge of child welfare. The child welfare system is charged to keep families in place. That's their first charge from the district attorney's office at state level. That's their charge. Okay. So, patterns of continued neglect, patterns of continued medical neglect, where you just will not take your child to the doctor. They're continuously coming to school sick. They're continuously at the doctor's office with no resolve. Prescriptions aren't being picked up. Whatever that can trigger an immediate removal in those decisions. Okay, so then you get in, you try to
Absolutely.
figure out what's causing this parent not to follow through. Okay.
Okay, absolutely. So, how does poverty get criminalized as neglect?
Oh my goodness gracious. See,
Yeah, we got to
poverty.
get in deep. Get in deep.
Oh, listen. Poverty. Now you're definitely getting into the systemic issues of the results of slavery in the African American community. Because one of my third one, I had three things I wanted to definitely touch upon today about the similarities was the disproportionate amount of African American families that are caught into the child welfare system. Okay. So there's a huge proportion, disproportionate amount. And most of it, what it really resembles, Empress, mostly it's poverty. Okay. It's mostly poverty that you see.
Okay.
So most of the time you're seeing poverty. Okay, so
Yes.
when you talk about no lights, or I've seen no lights, I've seen utilities off for a period of time. I've seen no socks in the coldest of days, no coats. These are reports that are getting called in. Okay. For the child coming, what we call not dressed appropriately for weather. Okay.
Absolutely.
Empress, do you know how many times my own children have left home inappropriately dressed for the weather when they had three coats hanging in the closet,
I can imagine. I do. I know how children are.
and they don't want to be bothered with the coat. Okay. But because my children are known at my school, at the school that they go to, I'm known because I'm there for different reasons. My children don't get called in. They don't get called on.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
So
Right.
many times it is poverty, not enough food. Well, what happened to the food stamps or medical neglect? What happened to the Medicaid? They couldn't get birth certificates because they could not afford it. We have we I one of the things, the way I want to answer your question is, how does poverty get criminalized? Okay. Or that's a whole nother question, but how does poverty play into the child welfare system? It is huge, because a lot of times what people see, the reports that are made, what they're seeing is poverty. Okay. They're not necessarily seeing parents that don't care about their children. They're not necessarily seeing parents that don't love their children. They're not necessarily seeing parents who are not doing the best that they can do. What they may be seeing are parents that are afraid to even approach anyone for help for fear of what happened just happening. So much like immigrants who won't ask for help, and many times we have that one, but because they don't want to be um, identified, a lot of times parents will get into a difficult situation, and they won't reach out for help because they're afraid someone's going to turn them in to the child welfare system. And
Absolutely.
it's like
Absolutely. That's
a
what I was
catch
going to
twenty
say.
twenty, a catch 22, a catch 22. So much of what we saw was poverty. I was very fortunate in that the judge for the years that I worked in the county I was in was very careful to say, are you sure that you are not just adjudicating this case because of poverty? A lot of judges won't do that. Okay. they won't go there. They'll go ahead and adjudicate. So but the judges have a lot of power. Of course, judges have a lot of power, and they can say, take this to a prevention case. And as soon as they take it to prevention, what happens? Those 5 children that all that money came in, that money's gone. That money's gone. That
Right.
Medicaid is gone that day. By the
Wow.
time you get back to your office, the
Yeah.
Medicaid is off.
Wow.
I'm not just playing with you. When we
And
go
that's
into
not good.
it's off just then. So now, whereas it took us a movement to get medical care, that medical care could have been the same reason. We can go in and we're going to help that mother get that Medicaid on, but still, we're going to have to buy birth certificates. We're going to have to order Social Security cards. We're going to do it anyway because we need to help them, right? But oftentimes, what you see is poverty, okay? It's a poverty mentality that has been generationally passed down. And that's why it's so important for me, as someone who has navigated the system from the inside, to really get to educate our community on how to avoid it. That's a whole nother something I'm working in. How to avoid this system. You don't want, this is not a system you want to get entangled in. It
That's
is
true.
not, it is not friendly at all. You have good people. I hope I did more good than I did damage to families. I hope, I can only hope. I'm going to tell you this because I know time is getting short for you. The last thing I wanted to bring about the similarities, and that first of all, did that answer your question, Empress?
Actually, yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Okay.
And it actually brought me to the next question that you was
Okay.
talking about. I was
Okay.
going to say, how does the long-term psychological consequences of breaking up families, or just the separation of families that we don't talk about, that was the same thing from when the families were being separated during that time.
Exactly. So, Empress, we actually do not even know at this point um, the extent. Okay, if you look back at slavery and you think about the 200 plus years, then the Jim Crow, and you think about all of the elements, all of the economic downside that African Americans endured in this country. I said to my class a few weeks ago, there should not be an African American in this country that's not in therapy, because the trauma of slavery in the DNA is real. We're
Yes, and
still
that's
we're,
good. That's
we're
good.
still we're still impacted from it. And then what we do is we rinse and repeat patterns and systems, and we call it child welfare, but we rinse and repeat. So the trauma then continues, because for some families, they're not even able to jump out of the trauma cycle long enough for one or two people to get a footing in order to bring others with them. And that's why I get very upset and very angry and passionate about um when people act as though all African Americans should just be on an even keel right now. No, there has to be a model created in every one of those units, for every one of those family units, for them to see. Okay,
Absolutely.
because many of those families that I saw as a child welfare worker in the state, all I had to do was go back and pull records on their families. Just as families have cycles of welfare itself, they also have patterns of child welfare entry, and the pattern repeats itself into the children. I may have a child, I may have a teenager that's 14, 15, 16, who gives birth to a child while she is in custody. That child cannot take care of that child. While that child may not necessarily be removed from that teenager, depending on what's going on with that situation, that child still has to go under court order and become a ward of the state at
Wow.
birth. At
So it's,
birth.
I'm sorry,
So
go
the
ahead.
trauma, so the trauma continues.
Yes,
What
that's what I was
what
about to say. It
the
just
trauma
turns to
continues.
generational.
It becomes generational. And what we call we what we know is that there is secondary trauma. Number one, when a child, there's trauma when a child is removed from the home. The child is then placed in another family's home, whether it's a family member or it is a foster home. Then secondary trauma occurs when that child is then removed from that placement and moved to another placement. So every time you move a child who is in foster care, because sometimes these children, they're not having it, they are not acclimating to this. Excuse me. Every time you move them, it is a re traumatization of that child. And being a social worker, you know exactly that this child is experiencing this trauma. Do we pay for therapeutic services? Yes, we do. Does it
That's good.
answer every situation? No, it doesn't. Because you have to understand that children that come through foster care are more likely to be homeless. Children who come through foster care are more likely to see incarceration in prison. So the outcomes of children in foster care are offsetting what we call as protection. This system needs an overhaul so badly. I'm trying to literally overhaul it on my computer. Like, how can I overhaul? I see it, but what can I do? I live and I say with impunity that I was part of this system. Was I part of this to learn what I learned? Or, there were times that I felt really guilty about it. I'm like, what is I'm like, I'm looking at this. And I'm seeing the trauma of it all. I'm seeing the patterns repeat. And you often don't know what happens to your children once they leave care because you're moved on to the next 14 or 15 cases that you have in front of you.
Oh, wow. So it's just a system built for a cycle of destruction. That's absolutely what it is. So now that you want to restructure it, uh, what if you could design it, design a system rooted in dignity and self determination? What principles would you let guide it?
Well, Empress, what I'm trying to work on right now is how ways to educate our community specifically because we are so disproportionately represented. And I have a heart for my people. I don't not care about other people. I care about all of them. But I know who I saw. I know whose homes I went to. Teaching them how to avoid the system, not out of fear, but out of building wealth where they are. Okay. So if you get TANF, if you get child support, you still need to understand budgeting. And
Absolutely.
you need to do it without being judged. Oh, they just need to get a job. Childcare is hugely expensive. Well, they just don't need to have babies. I remember people had babies and they took the babies and don't talk to me about that. Don't judge the people that I understand still have systemic issues that they're overcoming. I am not making excuses. What I'm saying is that we've got to get into those marginalized communities and teach them before they get into this system.
That's it.
Okay. If your child is going to go to school, understand that there are these people, they're called mandated reporters. And if your child comes in there with Mitch Mac socks on or shoes with no laces and no coat and whatever, and they got up and got themselves dressed, hey, no, don't do that because you're gonna get that first hit. It doesn't take but that one hit. and you're caught in the system, even if the case is unsubstantiated, your name is in that system and it remains in that system. And when the second report comes in, when the third one comes in, there's a problem. So I think we've got to start within that, educating our people before they get into it. Use those types of things. I've been introduced to this great phrase, make the money bounce. Hey, teach our people that are
Oh
living in public
yeah,
housing how to make their money bounce. Okay, what to do? What can you do collectively to help each other? How can you do that? And without fear, not because you're afraid you might end up in the child welfare, only because it's what you want to do, what you need to do, so you can eliminate the idea of someone knocking at your door. I
absolutely.
think that the other thing is that we have got to educate our general overarching community about the ills of the child welfare system, and get our community to um accept our children, because what happens is that we often have to take them outside of the community, because a lot of times what happens is our homes don't meet standard. So what if we could help people get homes that can meet standards, that are safe? Okay, what can we do to help improve our own communities? you know
That's
uh
it.
that's a big thing. You can't get approved for foster care depending on what happens. But I don't see the construction workers that look like us. Let the landowners build some houses. I got land in the back. I look at it all the time and I'm like, it's just sitting there.
Yeah, it's time to
What
do
can I
something
do?
with it.
So that question is so huge. It needs so much overhauling. We need to find ways to funnel money into our systems, into our communities, that's not connected either to welfare, um, or uh, criminal justice, or those types of areas. Again, these are legislative moves. These are these And people, if you want to overhaul this system, go vote. I'm sorry, just go vote some people out and let's get some folks in. I'm just going to throw that out there. We hurt ourselves when we don't have people that even care about our issues. And the reason is that you have to get someone to at least listen to your issue. That does not mean they are not your savior, but you got to at least get people that will listen to your issue. But if you don't vote and those numbers don't line up, they ignore you. So the money goes elsewhere and it doesn't come to your community.
Absolutely. So
I'm
basically,
so
what you're
sorry I'm
saying.
talking too much.
No, you are great. Now you hitting all the points. You are hitting all the points. You shedding some light and letting us mothers know. Just steer away from that system. Just take care of what you need to take care of. And if you have pride, put your pride aside and ask. That's what those organizations are out there for. So you can reach out and get the help that you need. You
Yes.
know.
Ask.
Yes, yes, that'll be the first way to keep yourself out of the system that is made to hurt you.
Yes.
It's systematic to break you down, to take your children, to steal your children, put them in the system so they will later on become products of their environment, go to
Mhm.
jail, or death, whatever. We just have to be more aware, and we need to start working with one another, just like you said.
Yes,
The main thing is prevention and intervention, like you were saying, proactive family strengthening. That's how we're going to work through this, and that's how we're going to get through this. So, yeah,
exactly.
you're doing great. I love that you're just shedding so much information where, we think of a system that is supposed to be here to help us. And it's not. It's just like the slave system that they had set up for our ancestors, and a lot of the times, women just willingly give the children over to the system, thinking it's going to be a better thing for them because they feel
Yes,
like they can't do something.
they
No, it's
do.
not. It's not a better thing. It is better for you to work hard and figure it out and do the best you can for your children, and they'll understand um, what you went through versus just giving them up to a system that is designed to hurt and harm and suppress them.
Yes. Ultimately, that even though not necessarily the intent, but the outcome,
The outcome,
the
absolutely.
outcomes are usually not positive in the long run for the children of the system. And that's the unfortunate part. We may get them out, we may take them out of harm's way for a little bit of time, but their outcomes that are laid in front of them is not good because they often get depressed. Once they reach a certain age, they can refuse services, and now you just have a whole nother issue on your hands. We've got to figure out how to come together as a community, not forget about our marginalized portion of our community, not forget about our single moms, not forget about our single dads, and not forget about each other, you know, and that's a
Right.
whole nother issue.
Absolutely. It sounds like you're talking about community-based child protection. That's what it
Yes.
sounds like that'll look
That's
like.
exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we need. And everything that you were talking about, just building infrastructure, you know, um, it's just people like you who are stepping into place so that we can start tearing down these systems that are built to help us but hurt us.
Yes.
So I'm excited about you being able to shed light and giving us a little liberation about that. And
Yes.
so once you get that into place, what would liberation look like for those families within, let's say, the next 20 years?
So Empress, I have this image in my head. I want to see um all of the public housing that was initially created for poor whites that we got inherited. We were handed, we always get the hand-me-downs. I would like to see our families walk away from that public housing. I would like to see them be able to find ways to scale up, whether it's a two-bedroom, one bath home, independent homes, um, and get out of public housing. Public housing is it is where it breeds. Um, it just absolutely breeds a depressed type of feel, and people feel like they're trapped. And I go in them and I see generations. I see moms living next door to their daughters and next to their grandmother, and the elders are living on one section, and then the mothers and the grandmothers are living in the area where the children. I would like to see none of us in public housing. I do not like public housing. It is a way we are corralled. It's a way where we are carved out without uh, it even being said.
Right. That's what I was about to say.
And so
It's like
that's
a
how it
little
would look to me.
cage.
The disappearance of public housing and teaching people how to have ownership from day one, and how just, you know, just get rid of that whole system. That's where it breeds. It's like
Right.
it's a breeding ground.
Right, that's what I was saying. Every time you pass by and look at it, it looks like a little cage, and you could just feel the heavy negative energy around those housing
Right.
project housings. You know, it's just like
You don't see trees, you don't see
you
flowers,
don't. All
you
you
don't
see is
see any of that.
concrete. You
You
see
see it's concrete,
concrete.
and they resemble prisons,
Yes, yes, yes.
the
So it's
prisons that
like a
I also
psych.
worked in.
it,
Yes,
it's training you psychologically, you know. So
that's it.
yeah, that in itself is one
Yes.
thing, of course, we definitely need to get rid of.
We need to give
And
it back to them. They let them have it.
yes,
Everything that we have, everything within our community. We have the passion, we have the
and
talent.
more.
We what we need is the camaraderie. That's really what's missing. The haves and the have-nots, we need to throw that show out the window. Not the show necessarily, but the idea of it. The haves and the
Yes,
have-nots, and
yes,
to defeat that mentality. It is one that was handed to us. We are repeating patterns. We've got to break the patterns that have brought that have come to us through slavery, through our DNA, and that we have to fight against it consciously. We have to have the conversations, and we've got to tell the mom with three children, you can go back and get your GED. You can go back to school. You can get a job. You can do some things. What can we do to help? We've got to be able to put those systems in place.
absolutely. That's what the infrastructure that we're working on. Matter of fact, that's what Royals United is working on, building infrastructure for the communities, in the community, so that we can, you know, get out of these systems that's been built to
Yes,
hurt us. You know,
yes,
so I'm just excited that we are on the right track. We are building and we're growing and we're learning and we're getting infrastructure in place so that we don't have to deal with this society. We have everything and more that we need to
we do.
thrive as a community. And that's what we need to do. We need to just put our differences aside. That's what it's going to take. And I know that's
Yes,
hard because we have had so many generational years of
yes,
oppression and suppression. So we just have to heed this call and wake up and put the energy and effort into growth and development instead of all the other things that are non-productive.
yes.
So, Miss Jenny, how do you feel? What do you know about this? Is off topic, but about Royals United, how could that help with the system that we're talking about right now? And
Um,
what action should listeners take after this conversation?
well, that's a big question for me. I am a member. I joined Royals United because what I heard them discuss was ways, basically, to invest into our community, invest money, make the money bounce. That's where I learned that term from. Supporting infrastructure within our own communities. And I think what people need to do is take some time to really find out what this organization in and of itself is about. And what I would maybe like to see down the road, and that I can help with that, is I'm connected to those marginalized people. What can we do to do that teaching piece in the economic space, bringing economic space to the child support check, bringing that economic space to the TANF, bringing good healthy living to the EBT, shopping, bringing our health and all of those things to a new level. And people feel better when they're healthier. They feel better. They when they understand how powerful their money is, whether it's $5 or $50 or whether it's $5,000. It doesn't make any difference. It what matters is what you do with that. Okay, I've not always been on the side of where I could be frivolous with money. I am not on that side now. Okay. So I understand how important it is to understand money. And so I think that this company that understands money, if that somehow they can develop some of those classes that surrounded economics, that's on a level where people that don't understand economics so grand could speak their language and help them understand how to make their money grow for them. And when I say grow, I don't necessarily mean bank accounts, but just help them emotionally grow as well. And so I would like to see as many people consider this company, consider joining it, and consider becoming a partner with it. I think it's good seed. I'm putting my money in it, because I think it's good seed, and I think eventually it will impact the infant that I talk about that was born and went into child welfare, to where we don't see those babies anymore. We see good, prosperous, healthy families that are sending their children to college, sending their children to trade school, starting their own businesses, understanding from the door what money looks like. Mama's getting off welfare and getting out of those doggone prison laden um, public housing projects.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You said a mouthful. That that is quite a wrap up. Yes, because Royals United is set into place to help, growth and development and infrastructure, and to help break down these systems and to help build our communities up. We need our communities to be built up, and I'm so happy that you let everybody know what great things will come from investing into such a group such as Royals United. I'm a member as well, and so far, everything has been great. Everything has been wonderful. Everything is lining up. Everything is being set into place so that we can actually see things and see change in the communities. So I'm excited to be a part of Royals United. Miss Jenny, I would just like to thank you so much for coming here with us and giving us your time, your space, and your energy. This was such an excellent, excellent interview. It just opened up our eyes and explain how not even known about the system that was sent here to help us. That's been in all actuality hurting us. And it's one thing that we did not talk about or touch on, but a lot of children get trafficked out of that system. And
Oh,
that's
oh, that,
part two. We're gonna have to go into that. But
oh yeah,
Miss Jenny, it's like a lot of them go in and a lot of them don't come out.
yeah. I've had
So
my share
yeah,
of trafficking. Yes,
yes,
and we
ma'am.
also pull some out of trafficked situations as well. But you are absolutely right, because once they run away and you cannot find them, we already know.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So, do you have any more closing remarks you'd like to add on before we head up out of here?
No, I just want to say thank you to you and to Kaz for allowing me to come into your space and to access your platform, and this is how we do it. We share each other's space and accessibility, and I just appreciate it all the way around. And I hope that this will be helpful, and I hope that someone will be inspired to do something for their community from it. It's not just words for me. It's action.
Absolutely. If you have any contact information, if anybody want to reach out to you, if they want to know a little bit about more what Dr. Jenny got going on, how can they reach you?
Okay. So my email is, it's long, but it's not difficult. It's Jenny, JennyMo. That's the letter M, the letter O, the number five, Jenny Mo5. That's the mother of five. Dot Jr. Jenny Reed at gmail.com. So I'll give it to you without interruption. Jenny, JennyMo 5 dot JR gmail.com. Do email me with any questions, and I will definitely answer you. I'm on emails all day, and I will definitely get back to you. Give me a little grace, but I would definitely get back to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what about if anybody wanted to donate for your jewels of wisdom that you brought from us? Do you have a cash app or anything?
Um,
Or do you
I
have any
do.
products or services you'd like to let everybody know about?
What I would say in this regard, if you're interested in donating anything, I at this point I would prefer, I'm looking to donating to Royals United because right now I am not legally set up to take donations, and so I definitely don't want to get into a system like that. And but I think there's ways that you can donate to Royals United on my behalf. That would be great. Just and Empress could tell you how to do that. That would, I think, would be more appropriate than to myself.
Absolutely not a problem. All you have to do is go to donate at Royals, ROYALC.com. That's donate at Royals, ROYALC.com. And just let us know it's for Dr. Jenny. All donations are welcome. And on that note, we would like to say thank you so much for listening to CozMik Mind and EmpressStar, here to take you far no matter where you are. Dr. Jenny, thank you so much for coming and hanging with us. We really, really enjoyed you. We can't wait for part 2. We know we got to go a little bit deeper. Thank you
Thank you.
again. Signing out.
Bye bye.